I was playing white this time. And the game starts with 1d4, knight f6, pawn to c4, black goes with pawn c5. Now this opening is called as the Benoni Defence. The idea is that if I take it, first of all, what black is making sure, this is a non-center pawn. And again, I am having a center pawn. So can you guys see that if I take, they can put another pawn on e5. And they're putting a pawn in the center, and the bishop is now trying to take this pawn. So it is not recommended for us to take a non-center pawn with a center pawn. Now here, what are the two choices? Remember the previous game that I was explaining, that the two choices we have is either push the pawn and your pawn still remains in the center, or you support it. I went for push the pawn this time. In the previous game, when a non-center pawn tried to attack a center pawn of mine, I supported it. In this game, when a non-center pawn is trying to attack a center pawn of mine, I pushed it. He goes e5. Now here, guys, I can take en passant like this. So, but I don't want to do that. Why I don't want to do that? Because I have lost the center pawn. I hope you guys are understanding the importance of center, right? Pawn e5, knight to c3, pawn to d6. Now I want to ask Srishti. Srishti, what would you play in this situation? White to play?
I usually in such situations play like pawn e4 or something.
Pawn e4, right? Everyone will play pawn e4, correct? Because we want to control center.
Yes, sir. I was thinking of.
Yes, pawn e4 is absolutely correct. Queen a5. Shinesh, explain what is black trying to do. There's a tactic right happening, Shinesh. What is the tactic from black? Black to play.
Sir, black is trying to move bishop g4.
No, bishop g4 is not the tactic. Right now, after queen a5, what this move has done, Pughal, can you explain what is the tactic from black?
He's trying to pin our knight.
And what is the next move that they're trying to go for? Suppose if I make knight f3, a normal looking move, what will black do?
Black will go take the pawn. E-pawn.
Yes. So suppose if I just do this, black is just gonna go knight e4 because the knight on c3 is pinned. I cannot take back. So remember, whenever you are under pin, never allow yourself to be under pin for too long. Again, you are having two choices. Either you unpin yourself like this, so that if it takes, you can take back, or put a second defender on the pawn where the knight is trying to attack. I went for bishop d3. Now he cannot take me. Bishop to e7. And now in this case, try to again understand something about good bishops and bad bishops. See, look at the pawn structure of white. Look at the pawn structure of black. In the white's camp, all the pawns in the center are of light squares. It means the light square bishop is a very bad bishop because it has no scope. No scope. In the black's camp, black is having the dark square bishop as a bad bishop because this bishop again has no scope. Suddenly, because of the pawns are on light squares, this bishop becomes a good bishop because it is having diagonal, open diagonal, and this bishop becomes good bishop. So in such positions, whenever the game is played, suppose if I go few moves back, the theory goes something like this. Suppose they go something like bishop e7, bishop d3, knight d7, knight f3, and they don't want to castle here. See, what is the theory? The theory is knight f8, castle, knight g6, because now they want to castle. Suppose if I play something like h3, they go h6, I play bishop e3, or I play something like queen to c2 or e2, they will play knight h7. The idea is to go knight to g5. Suppose if I make a random move, knight take, bishop takes, and can you see? Black wants to exchange a bad bishop of their side with my good bishop. And after takes, queen takes, and the game goes on. Now, what is left? If you compare the bishops with each other, which bishop is a better bishop in the game? Like
Black.
Black's bishop is better bishop, right? C8 bishop is more powerful than D3. That is the main idea. I'm just telling you the main idea here. The threat is now to go knight F4. So suppose if I just ignore everything, they can go knight to F4. And there are many threats that are working right now in the game. So suppose something like queen F3, I can go knight H3 check because it's pinned. You cannot take it. You cannot take by the queen because I can again take you. So it becomes very risky to play. But my opponent did not go for this line. But it is an important thing to understand what is good bishop and bad bishop. If your bishop is stuck by your own pieces, your own pawns, it becomes a bad bishop. Okay. So, guys, I hope it is clear that in both the camps, there is one bad bishop and one good bishop, right?
And how do you stop it?
What?
How do you stop them?
Yeah, so I'll come to that. So now I'll show you how do you stop that exchange. So instead of going knight F3, what I do when I play these positions, I don't play knight F3. So let's see the game. Then I'll explain the idea. Suppose they went queen here. I anyways go bishop to D3. And after bishop E7, I don't play knight F3 here. I play knight to E2. Now the difference is that after they castle, I castle, and they can do this kind of move, or they can play knight to D7. Now that is why I have played knight E2. I start playing F4. And suddenly this changes everything. Now, can you imagine if the knight was on F3, I cannot play F4?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is where you have to understand that I want to make this bishop into a good bishop. Now, how do you make your bishop into a good bishop? You want to push the pawn. How can I push the pawn? There's an opponent pawn, right? So I want to exchange it and make the bishop good. So let's see the game, what happens. So he played bishop G4. Now I want to play F4, but first H3. He goes here. Never allow yourself to be under pin for too long because I want to play F4. I played queen to E1. Unpinning my queen. I'm pinning the knight actually.
So,
Knight D7.
why not G4?
G4 is actually a good move. Yeah, G4 can be played, no doubt. You can play pawn G4, bishop G6, and you can play pawn F3. Something like G4, there and there. Now, can you guys see that we have created a great wall of China here against this bishop? Can you see that?
Yes.
This bishop has no
Wall
scope.
of China.
This bishop has no scope at all. Why? Because all the pawns of white are on light squares and they are blocking the path. You can play
Sir, bishop is actually trapped. It cannot move anywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, it is kind of trapped, but even your bishop is not having good space. But now we say that, you know what? From black, this bishop was already bad, yes or no?
Yes.
But suddenly this bishop was good earlier, right?
Yes.
But now this bishop has also become
Bad.
bad. So you can play this way. But just remember that after G4, you don't want to play F4 now. You want to play F3 and make the bishop bad. Suddenly, out of these four bishops, which one is the most powerful bishop? I will ask Avik. Avik, which one out of these four bishops is the most powerful one?
The C1 bishop, I think.
Yeah. Everyone can understand why C1 bishop is the most powerful one?
Yes.
And the irony is that out of the four bishops, only the C1 bishop is the bishop that has not even moved. Yet, it is the most powerful one. See?
Because all the other bishops were in a rush to get out and got stuck into everyone's line.
Yeah. I did not play this move. I did not play this line, but since Pugal was mentioning, so I just told. I went queen E1 because my idea is to play F4. Now this, F4. In fact, one important point. Suppose if someone plays this, it's a blunder. Can you guys tell me what would white play? Tactics. White to play and find tactics. If rook c8 is played, rook a c8 is played, it's a blunder in the game. My opponent did not do that, but I want to just ask you. White to play and trap it. So you go pawn g4.
Teacher, yes.
Bishop g6 and
Oh,
pawn f5.
Teacher, I was just only gonna say that.
I'm
But
just
now I have
focusing on
understood, right?
the.
But sir, how's it like? What was it to do with the rook c8 move? Like,
So
if
I'm
you
just telling you that at this moment, after f4, the idea is not to just take on this pawn. The idea is to trap the bishop. So the threat is pawn to g4. So you have to find out that, okay, you cannot play a normal move like this because I'll just go g4, bishop g6, and pawn f5. So here my opponent just captured the knight. He captured, I captured. Captures, captures. Now, again, let's stop here. Again, look at the pawn structure of black. Figure out which pawn is a weak pawn. All of you. Which pawn of black is a weakness right now? What do you guys think?
D pawn, sir.
d
D pawn.
d6 pawn.
e6, exactly. Everyone can understand
D6
this? Because a pawn likes to protect a different pawn, right? Only in the
Yes.
case of d pawn, no other pawn can protect it. But it is important to understand that right now I cannot just try to attack it by the rook because the d file is closed. So when you have figured out a weakness, and if the file is closed, your rook and queen cannot attack it so much. The queen can attack it if it is on the diagonal, but the rook can never attack it. So you need to take help of minor pieces, meaning the bishop is attacking. Now I can go knight b5 to attack. He went rook e8 because my opponent wants to probably put the rook to my queen on the same file. Knight to b5, queen to b6 to protect the pawn. Now, how can I play knight to d6? I want to remove the queen. What should be the plan?
So just push the A pawn.
A pawn to a4. Yes. Now, my opponent played pawn a6. What should I do?
Push the pawn.
Very good job. Find intermediate move. Pawn a5. Queen cannot take the knight. It is already protected. Pawn cannot take the knight because the queen is under attack. So they have to move the queen. And now everything
take the
starts falling apart. Takes, takes, takes. The rook is lost on f8. And after a couple of moves, if you look at the position, white is already +3. Let's go back a bit. At this moment, how can black stop? How can black still survive the pawn? How can black still save the pawn? Anyone?
Still take the pawn.
How will black save the pawn?
Pawn to A5.
Very good. So how do you find out? So first of all, I've shown you what is white threatening. So you stop the threat. That's it. My threat was to go pawn a5 and kick the queen. Now I cannot do that. And the game will go on, right? The game will progress. I'll start g4 now. But I cannot take on d6 anymore. My idea is to go queen h2 now. Are you understanding?
Yes.
And the game will go on. The game will progress. But in the game, it did not happen. My opponent could not find the defense. And now he lost 3 points for that. I'll quickly show the game now. Queen to e3 to attack pawn. He protected. Rook to c1. Involve every piece in the game. Don't go for the attack until unless you have complete control of your pieces. Your pieces should be very close to each other, coordinating with each other. Captures, captures. Now here my opponent is helping me only because I am +3. So remember rule of +2. If anyone is +2, exchange of pieces will force towards endgame and favor that side. Knight takes pawn. I pin the knight. It's not actually a pin. He can go back, but I want to go for the end game. I want to take the rook. My opponent does not want to take exchange the rooks because my opponent knows that exchange of rooks is very simple end game for white to win. So now I want to attack the knight multiple times. How can I increase the attack on the knight? Which piece is not participating yet?
Sir,
The rook.
first the rook.
So I played rook f3. because the idea is to go rook e3, right? My
Yes.
opponent played pawn f5. How can you go further in the endgame to simplify? This technique is called simplification. When you know you are having advantage, you try to simplify the game so that opponent cannot create counterplay. How can I simplify the position in this case? White to play.
I think take the knight.
Take the knight by the rook.
Yes.
Queen takes.
Queen takes, then queen takes queen.
Then rook takes.
Then rook takes, then the rook takes pawn.
But you lost everything. I'm having a rook, you're having a rook.
Mm.
It's a small tactic here. See, I said you are plus, like white is +2. White wants to force endgame. White wants to simplify situation. Only thing what black has that can still create counterplay is the queen, right? So I played rook f5. Check. Queen has to take. And now pin. Understanding?
Yes.
And now takes. And now, can you see, I'm still +2, but I removed the queen from the board of the opponent. And now it's completely simple endgame. Now I started attacking a pawn. He protected, but now he cannot protect the other pawn. So first of all, he was attacking, so I protected it. Check, and there goes the other pawn. Trying to attack the queen. Check, there goes another pawn. Check. Check. And now, okay, once he moves the king away, he loses the knight. But there was one move that he could have played was rook e5. But anyway, it's not doing much because the rook is pinned and the game will go on. I'm having these passed pawns. White is +4, absolutely winning. The pawn is falling and everything is falling apart. But here my opponent played this. Queen g3, game finish. My opponent resigned here, okay?